Hello everyone, a lot of familiar faces. So if you don't know me, I'm Damien Couture, CAO for the Village of Cache Creek. Pretty sure I know everyone in the room, but just in case. I'm going to talk a little bit about the recovery. I've been up here in previous sessions speaking to this, but today we're kind of focusing on the good news stories, and I think we have a lot of them. So we're going to start with what's happened so far. We're pretty close to the 2-year anniversary for the 2023 Freshet, and it takes a little while to get our feet under us and start moving, but we've started on a few things. I'm going to talk about 5 main projects that have had a real impact in the community. One is a water main reestablishment. I'm going to go into each of them in detail. You don't have to worry about reading the little information underneath, but one is reestablishing the water main, but in a different location. Another is reconstructing the Todd Road Bridge to get it usable. Another one, it started with a sanitary system inspection, and now it's kind of evolved into some other items. Then we also have the Community Hall storm sewer. You may have noticed that there was a lot of work going on when the new bridge was being constructed, so I'll go a little bit into that story. And then the other one is the actual new bridge itself that has been constructed on Highway 97, not 99. So starting with the water main reestablishment, shortly into the 2023 event, one of the bigger water mains within the village of Cache Creek was compromised and was unable to flow water through it. It was located near the bridge by the Husky, and so we needed to think up an option quick. In response, we were able to secure water flow after a little bit to those residents through kind of a temporary means. But within a few months, a key thing that we were able to do is, instead of fixing the water line where it was, it actually made a lot more sense to put another water line somewhere else, and it was actually less expensive to go and put it in a completely different location, especially because we're dealing with things in the moment, trying to get things done, and freshet's still occurring, the water levels are high, so you don't really know what you're getting into if you're trying to repair an issue that we couldn't even fully analyze and determine. So we were able to make quick work of this one, and one of the big positives out of this is it created additional looping within the community. So people that are on that new line should notice better and more consistent water pressure. And then also it adds a bit more redundancy into the system. So when we have substantial issues in the network and we're having to isolate certain areas to do work, it gives us a few more places that we can go and isolate, because that sort of stuff happens and we want to impact as few people as possible. So that's one of the positives for that one. Next is the Todd Road Bridge. It was completed last year. It sustained some substantial damage, and even before the flooding, the deck wasn't in great shape. So we took the opportunity while we were doing the work to reestablish the bridge. We also redecked the bridge at the same time using a grant from the Canada Community Building Fund, in order to be able to make it that when the bridge comes back, it's able to be used fully without any concerns. We're expecting the final pavement for the access and egress on the 2 sides sometime later this year in the next coming months. The only reason why it wasn't done last year is just because we lost our pavement window for good pavement, so we're expecting that to be happening in the next little bit. Next is the sanitary system inspection. So previously, before the flooding in 2023, we had received a grant to go through our whole sanitary system and inspect it for points of concern due to inflow and infiltration. And so basically what that means is, especially the areas that are low-lying, like low-lying near the Bonaparte or near Cache Creek, those areas specifically are susceptible to water coming in from Freshet, going into our sanitary system, and then overwhelming it. And so that results in huge volumes of water going down to our wastewater treatment plant, and then it isn't able to do its job, and nobody wants that. So we were fortunate enough, we had received a grant. Literally the month before we flooded, we had done an inspection of the system, which was great, because then after the flood, we had another inspection done through DFA funding, and we were able to identify things that were specifically damaged because of the 2023 Freshet event. which normally isn't a thing, because typically it's not common for a municipality very often to go and do a full camera and sweep through their sanitary system. For a community like Cache Creek, that costs like $100,000. So without external funding, it's not something that we would normally do. So we were very fortunate that we were able to get 2 inspections done, able to compare the results, and this has resulted in a phase 2 for the process because there's 2 areas that were identified as points of concern that had potential damage. We're going to be looking at repairing those later this year, and they're to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and so that's damage that would have normally gone unchecked. But it, just by coincidence, we were already doing some stuff in the area, so it worked out well. Next, the community hall storm sewer system. So the community hall itself, the hall and the parking lots, used to previously drain to a rock pit just outside, near where the Tesla chargers are and the Sani station. So with that area, because it drained to a rock pit, for anyone that doesn't know, a rock pit is literally a hole in the ground, engineered but filled with rocks so that everything drains into it and then it naturally goes back into the soils. Recognizing that that isn't the best way to do things, we looked at working with our partners at the Ministry of Transportation. Well, they were already doing work in the area to establish a sewer main, because they had to move our sewer main in order to properly do the work for the new bridge. Because they were doing that, we were able to work with them, and we executed a project with extreme speed to be able to properly have this system drain to Cache Creek. Saving us to the tune of about $80,000 if we were to try and do the same project ourselves. So that's a huge win for us. Again, the overage above DFA's cost was paid for through the Canada Community Building Fund. So there's no cost directly to the people of the community, but we have a much better and more redundant system that can handle far more volume from rainfall and such in the community hall area. You all may recall that pending after 2023, anytime that we would have a light rainstorm, it would seem like the basement, or not the basement, the lower parking lot would have giant pools of water and people would be charging their Teslas and standing in water. It didn't seem safe. That's what happened. But that won't happen anymore. So all is good there. Next, I would be remiss to say that Highway 97 crossing itself, huge infrastructure upgrade in the area. Very happy to see it. Like any project of its scale and impact, it's like we heard things from residents, it's an inconvenience and all this sort of stuff, but now we look at it after everything's done, all the construction's done and over, and I think we can all say we're very happy that it's there. So like this project, there's other projects that we're going to be working on and other ones that we have been working on. They will have some, like a bit of an inconvenience in the short term while we're doing construction, but that's just part of it. We're making sure that we're doing things right and not building back better per se, but making sure that we're not building back inappropriately, putting things back the way that they were so that they can just be damaged again. We're looking to improve things. A big highlight to this, as we sit today, 60% of our recovery projects are complete, and the ones that aren't complete, we're expecting to have all of them at least started, if not completed, by the end of this year. So that's a huge thing. We're expecting, with the exception of one project that might take a little bit of time with the wastewater treatment plant, around this time next year, we should be done all of our projects. Well, that and Quartz Road, which I'll get to in a second here. So now we get to current projects. First one on the docket, Quartz Road. It's no secret that it's been pretty quiet over there. And we have people asking all the time, what's happening here? What's happening here? What's happening here? Quartz Road has always been a two-phase project because with it, if we were to simply put a crossing, whatever it happened to be, exactly where something was before, it will very likely fail. The thing that we have to manage first is the actual creek. because the creek is going to go about, and like Jonathan said, and nature wins most of the time. So we have to make sure that what we're going to be putting in, whatever it is going to be able to handle that area. So phase one is figuring out how we're going to get water through that area safely. And so one positive thing with phase one is we're in the process of having conversations with property owners in the area, and we're starting to have those conversations to really outline what's going to be happening in that creek, because it may need to move and change and grow. We're not quite sure yet. There's a lot of options on the table for how we're going to get water through there, but one of the first steps is talking with the people that could be very directly impacted in that channel and figuring out where to go after those conversations. We're expecting to start seeing this project moving fairly quickly in the near future, specifically because like in 2024 and 2023, on the village side, we were very busy with all the other recovery projects, but also any extra capacity we had, we wanted to assist other agencies completing things like, say, the Highway 97 bridge. We wanted to make sure that project was done and out of everyone's way, because it really has to happen first. It would not make sense for us to break ground on any sort of project at Quartz Road before we know the true capacity and the results of what happens there. So now that that's in place, we can start working our way up and down the watershed and figuring out what needs to happen next. Phase two, we'll be actually putting in a crossing. Again, we were extremely fortunate that just before we flooded, we had secured funding to create a crossing at Quartz Road, plan to figure out what kind of crossing we should put at Quartz Road. And so that funding has kind of been sitting away in the piggy bank, and now we're actually able to use that to do things like public consultation, which you'll likely be seeing through the later half of this year, where we'll be asking the public, what do you want to see? Here's kind of what we expect for costs, and based on these costs and this impact to the residents, what do you think is the right decision? And then gathering all that information to inform a decision on what will actually happen there for the phase two of this project. So expect to start to see this being a topic of conversation more often in the coming months. Another one that has been a personal pain for me is a storage trailer. So for those that aren't aware of it, during the flooding in 2023, the village of Cache Creek had a decommissioned refrigerator trailer that we were using for storage. The land eroded underneath it, and it carried it down a little down the river. It has been an incredibly difficult project to sort out how to do it in an economical and environmentally friendly way. So after 4 different versions so far that have failed, we have a 5th option that we're now working on that is looking quite positive. We're expecting to start to see work on this as soon as permits are done and through, and we'll likely be working on this, we think, in the late summer, just to coincide with proper working periods within the Bonaparte River and also conditions for the access. Because before, we never thought that this access that we're looking at is viable. Please forgive my poor doodle that's on the screen, but it shows a little bit of what we're looking at for the process. So this is taken from the south looking north. The buildings that are just underneath the word storage trailer is our wastewater treatment plant. The red circle is where the storage trailer currently sits, and the green line is our proposed route that we're working on getting permits to access. Previous iterations, we're looking at going over the creek, the Bonaparte River, going through the wetland, looking at helicopters, all sorts of things. And none of them turned out to work. So we're really hopeful for this one. It seems to check all the boxes. We've worked with local contractors, walked the property to see if it's doable, and we have multiple contractors that are saying, we think we can do this. So we're pretty hopeful for this option moving forward. So some other items that you can expect to be happening throughout later this year. The community hall parking lot. So as you all were coming in here, you probably looked over towards the creek and saw a fence still up there near the edge of the parking lot. So that's one project that was just recently approved. We're kind of approaching it in a similar phase 1, phase 2 manner. Phase 1 being, let's make it safe. Phase 2 being, let's restore it to what it needs to be. And the reason why we're dividing it into 2 parts is because we don't know exactly what's going to happen with the Quartz Road crossing. So it does not necessarily make sense to backfill that, put in a bunch of pavement, basically spend a lot of money, and do that and then determine that what we should have done is not have anything there. So rather than do that, we're going to make the area safe for this year, so people will be able to access the creek there again. And then as part of the Quartz Road crossing, we'll determine what phase 2 of this will look like. Another thing is the wastewater system post-inspection repairs. So similar to what I said before, with the damage that occurred in the wastewater or the sanitary mains throughout the community, with that, we're going to be actioning those items through the year. You'll expect to see construction around the Quartz Road area because that's where one of the damaged mains is, and the other one is around the Otter Co-op Star House area. So when those times come, you'll see crews working in those areas. Another thing is the Bonaparte River sanitary crossing. One of the little known projects that people don't realize happened is very close to where the footbridge is at the end of Collins Road that goes over to Sage and Sands Mobile Home Park. We have a sanitary main that goes underneath the river there. And previously, it was safe and nice and protected under multiple feet of dirt on the riverbed, and now it's not because of erosion from fast-moving water taking that all away. So now it's sitting there, visible to the naked eye. If you were to go for a walk tomorrow and look in the river, you'll see it. You'll see a line under the water, and that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not damaged, but we want to make sure it doesn't become damaged. So we're looking at a system called a concrete mattress. I learned about this earlier this week, which is basically a large concrete system that gets lowered on top of it, and then afterwards they'll just be protecting it in perpetuity. Is that right, John? That's how that works? Kind of?
Not forever.
Not forever. Many years. Nothing's forever.
Nothing.
It almost looks like a giant concrete Band-Aid. Yes. Yeah. Again, we're expecting all of these to start this year. Standing in front of a group of people, I don't want to miss this opportunity to let you all know a couple other things that are important in the community. Our active transportation and downtown revitalization plan, we're currently expecting feedback for. Kat's at the back with a couple copies of it. And if you want more information, she's there. Also, we have a facade program, which is for businesses in the downtown core that want to maybe do a little bit of a facelift, change a sign out, do all those sorts of things. If you or someone you know operates one of those businesses and they're even thinking about something like that, please have them come talk to us. We can work with them to try and explain what the program is. Because like recently, there's been a couple examples of businesses that could have qualified, but they did work first and didn't get the funds, which is unfortunate. So we really want to encourage people to come chat with us because it can be up to $5,000 in that business's pocket towards a project. That's a pretty big thing. Another thing, we did it last year, Shop Local initiative. For every $25 that you spend in a local business, you can go to the Visitor Information Center and get tokens to go into this really cool little gumball machine that dispenses marbles, and then you get a prize. Not all of them are winners, but there's a lot of cool prizes. A lot of them are like local community gift cards, among other things, hats, t-shirts, all sorts of fun stuff. We did it last year. It was hugely successful. Please participate and tell your friends. Last, something fairly new. Last year, or 2 years ago now, a movie called Get Fast was filmed in and around the area, and we are going to be hosting a screening of it here in the community hall on April 11th. It is R-rated, so because of that, we're taking the opportunity to host a 19 plus only movie screening with a bar and concession. So something a little bit different for residents of the community. We've never done it before. We'll see if it works. I encourage you all to attend. Last but not least, I've shown this slide in some previous presentations, and I feel that it's important because you have to hear it like 3-4 times to really get it. There's multiple phases of a disaster. Like it shows here, like before the disaster, everything's like emotions might be high for other reasons, but generally the tone is good. And then you have a disaster and it's unfortunate, but the community rallies together. Everyone feels awesome. Things seem to be working. But then after the disaster, it starts to just get worse and worse and worse because it's like, I can't drive anywhere. Everything's broken. I can't do this. The town's covered in mud. Like all these things just lower everyone's general happiness. And so it's important to know that that's a natural thing as part of disasters. And it's difficult to really see that in Cache Creek because we're hit by so many, right? Like 2017, 19, 20, like it's just everything keeps happening. So it's difficult to figure out where we are in this at any given time. One positive thing with 2023, I feel we're near the end of it. Most of the high impact recovery projects have already happened. They happened last year, like fixing Todd Road Bridge, fixing sidewalks, making it so that people can get around the community again. A lot of that big stuff is done. We're getting into the nitty-gritty now, and don't get me wrong, there's a few big nitty-gritty projects like Ports Road and the wastewater treatment plant. But the hardest stuff is kind of out of the way. So now we can get back to some standard of normalcy and carry on in the community. It's important to note that the village is still working at it. They've never stopped. Even myself, I encourage everyone to take a minute, obviously to look at everything. But for me, the really impactful boards are the ones over here that show the funding secured. It shows that, yeah, we may have had a flood in 2027 and then or not 2027. Yeah, that's not yet. No, it's not happening. In 2017 and then 2018. But just because we weren't seeing what was happening behind the scenes, people were working to try and make the community better by figuring out ways to prevent these things from happening in the future. And things like working on the channel, like the geomorphological assessment that John was talking about, the floodplain bylaw, like these things, it's challenging because a lot of people see it as, oh, it's just another planning thing. It's just another document to go on a shelf. But something like a floodplain bylaw, yeah, might not have an impact tomorrow. But 20 years from now, after 20 years worth of development and change has happened in the community, we're a lot less susceptible to flooding. So it's really big to be looking towards the future, and we're continuously looking for ways to get things moving and figuring out ways that we can get funding from external sources. It's important to note, like, even though that board has a huge list of numbers, most of them are 100% grants. So very little has had to come out of pocket for recovery for the taxpayers of Cache Creek. And I think that that's important to know, because you as residents are obviously seeing a bunch of numbers and a bunch of stuff happening and wondering where the money's coming from. Thankfully, it's, for the most part, not coming out of property taxes. Thank you. But yeah, we're committed to moving forward, and the final pieces are kind of coming into play that we're able to push through and get the last of the recovery projects done. And that's a nice thing. Hopefully a year from now, I'll be sitting here saying that we're 90 to 100% completed on all of our projects. There's only one thing left to do. Let's eat some cake. But we'll see. Thank you.